possible for the operator to slice the system end-to-end and offer 3 distinct slices with different performance requirements, looking at the critical, looking at the performance, or at supporting the business applications. So very malleable, extremely easy system to configure. It will be pretty much a digital twin of a physical infrastructure. Easy to handle. And the costs will be dramatically also reduced, because it will be based on a single platform hardware, and then the function will be chained according to the use cases you intend to provision. Yes, security from the 3G, so I'm talking about 4G and 5G, has been immensely enhanced, and all the communication protocols has made much more robust, and we do have encryption end-to-end for both user plane and control plane. In addition to this, with the 5G, encryption is also between the application function, the core network, as well as the communication services leaving one public network and entering into another. So you are still protected when you roam. So if you happen not to have coverage, there will be still signaling and the user plane protected. In addition to this, then that's the release, initial release of the 5G system. On the release 16 and 17, so for the release to come, when the security will be further enhanced for the ultra reliable latency communication services, and then further simplified for the massive machine type of communications. What I would like to say and stress here, as we have been saying for many times now, is that in order to achieve a secure system, which means security is pretty much related to resilience. So the resilience system, it is basically an overall responsibility of all stakeholders. So when we look at the end-to-end supply chain, we do have a supply chain vertically here, as well as horizontally, looking at the implementation, realization of different type of elements at a particular layer. We have different responsibilities, like vendors as well. They need to make sure that all the functions specified in the standards are supported. We do have a lot of responsibility on the operator, because it is the operator that is responsible for the security of the network, to make it resilient, and in particular to ensure that the security architecture is truly deployed and implemented and activated. It's also responsibility of the end user and the customers, because we need to make sure when we perform set of operations, the encryption is on. So we do have the right protocols when we deploy and start consuming particular application. I'm talking about critical services, but also the other application linked to business and the performance of the triangles. So we do have also a role in the government. So not a single player can solve all these issues alone. So the government are expected to output the proper regulatory frameworks and laws that we have all of them comply, and special role is in the standard, because it's the standard that the standardization purpose is the industry that to define clearly what particular security function has to be in place and how to measure and verify that the system in place is truly compliant. Looking at our organization, just have a couple of more slides to show what it means now, looking into the different domains here. Huawei has constantly invested on cybersecurity, and as you will see here, looking at the LTE, more than 300 deployed system globally, we haven't got any major concern as of today, and we comply and we get certified using common criteria, and wherever it is possible, as I said, we obtain a certificate. We are expert on cybersecurity, that is proven by the fact that we are the editor of the most important cybersecurity specification, current releases, and future releases. When you look at the detailed functions made available by our organization, you can see that given a set of threats, we are truly compliant with the best practice coming from US, the East. Looking at the resiliency of the system. Resiliency is about protecting ourselves through identifying possible threats, so having a measure in place to get protected detect what happened, respond and recover. Detection and responsiveness is all about resilience. So to be resilient, you need to be able to detect any possible threat, mitigate all possible risk, and especially respond before you're able to recover. But anyway, what we do here in our system, not only we implement and support all the function coming from standard, but we also have our special function that enhance and allow the deployment of truly trustworthy equipment. And here you have example of deployments, which is the responsibility of the operator, not of the vendor. So the vendor will provide compliant equipment, and the operator is responsible for the cybersecurity deployment. You see here, your network is becoming vulnerable, yet you need to protect the various interfaces by adding other equipment than the ones specified by the standards, such as firewalls for access control, as well as security gateway to cipher the communication and allow authentication and authorization between the communication between elements, as well as if you allow lawful interception, remember to protect the interfaces, because that's the easiest way for penetrating your system. Practically, by complying to standards, what we ended up is that your system will be practically invulnerable for any type of threats, and in particular, there are elements that allow you the discrimination, visibility, and auditing or anything that passes through interfaces used for configure your network. Okay, other recommendation here still for the carrier that we need to seriously consider that cybersecurity is a process, and that this process to be implemented. So you see here in your system, wherever you're having a cloud platform, you need to separate the clouds and the hardware is to be separated at the same time. You need to introduce isolation between the functions, so that means you make your system resilient. And that's basically an implementation aspect rather than of cybersecurity rather than the functionality of the network themselves. We need to remember to close open doors after configuration, and as well as pay attention how and who has certain type of privileges to access certain information. Our organization makes available 3 kind of platforms to comply with the best practices, like the NIST. As I showed you earlier, that we do have a platform for security management, so all configuration of the various type of parameters, including certificates. We do have a platform for monitoring, so analyzing and introduce transparency across all interfaces so that any problem can be immediately detected, and a platform for the policy control and enforcement. That's about how you may respond and recover from possible threats. We are also complying to the available standards. Here is a list of standards used for public transport in Australia. We have a fantastic contribution by the Australia standards, the 77700, that was made available already last year, derived from ISO. But as I said, the operator has to pay attention that it is really after to implement all the possible standard and the best practice, and this is just an example. Now, looking at Europe, Europe now is going beyond what I have presented. So the member states and the European Commission, what they've agreed is to enter into a 3-phase approach. So they first analyze all possible risks. So some of the results I'm showing you at the beginning of my presentation. The next step, they will make available a toolbox for the identified potential risk and threats. And then for next year, they will introduce a certification framework. It won't be mandatory, because the certification, the fact that you're certified, it's a necessary condition, not sufficient to be like a trustworthy type of element. But they will make available also a mandatory for who wants to use it, this way of complying to 2 types of specification. The one specification coming from the 3GPP, defining the system itself, so the security assurance specification, and the other requirements coming from the GSMA, that's the Association of Global Carriers they look into the security assurance methodology. And out of this work, in alignment with the European Commission, they will achieve a security assurance standards package that will make it possible to get products certified, compliant to those requirements, but in particular get accredited laboratory, an external way to examine the elements. So that's basically was my last slide. So in conclusion, I'd like to say that the FRMCS has to be, by design, future-proof, and the requirements we receive are on the application, not on the better. But it's been already agreed in the industry and among the main stakeholders that that particular vision will be realized through 4G initially, and then improved through the introduction of the new radio. And why? Because it's been agreed also that the GSMR is retiring by 2030. And if you look at the requirements, they have really stringent requirements on how to mitigate, that has to be mitigated, the cybersecurity threats of communication service, but also the data. And that's exactly what the 3GPP and the GSMA are targeting. And in addition to this, as I said, the cybersecurity, it is a complex problem and something that will evolve regardless as the technology evolves. So we need to work together. It is a collaborative effort to achieve a common standards. And if we look at our organization, we have been constantly investing on making trustworthy products, as well as support our operator, our customer, to achieve network resiliency, which means to get invulnerable to any internal or external attacks. I was in China, for instance, a couple of weeks ago with some stakeholders, and I showed them our ICSL, so this is a cybersecurity laboratory independent from the product line. So any product or element, including my smartphone, before coming to Australia, not only is tested within the product line, the particular product line. If you have a chance to visit us, you will see that there is a supply chain end-to-end that allows you to get 2,500 developers on the one chain with only 4 people. So each of the product is tested by each product line, but in particular at the end we have a large laboratory with thousands use cases, so that we make sure that the cybersecurity is and the mitigation and all the standards are. And thank you. This is pretty much what I wanted to share with you. You're welcome to visit our booth. We are here in hall 4, number 23, and to read our comprehensive paper. So we wrote a document of about 80 pages just to make sure that the system is clear to anybody, and in particular how our organization handles cybersecurity. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We've just got time for probably one quick question. Is there any questions?
What is the current carrier support for narrowband LTE technologies, and given the innovation that's kind of offered to railways in IoT, what kind of security, what are the biggest security concerns you see that kind of thing?
So if I go back, the narrowband IoT is release 13 and release 14 of the mobile communication system. So it's an LTE feature or a characteristic of the LTE system. It is a major technology, broadly deployed. I think there are, I don't know, hundreds of networks already deployed, and the system and cybersecurity complies with what I have presented here, because the protocol that connects this kind of devices is exactly the same as the protocols you are using to connect your SIM cards. In other words, even the small devices you run SIM cards, therefore they will have an identity for the equipment, there will be identity for its own subscriptions, and therefore they will be encrypted and protected as a normal communication service. They will remain as such because what has been agreed, the IoT will stay with LTE, so that means we have narrowband IoT release 13, enhanced narrowband IoT release 15, further enhancement into release 15, and so forth until the new radio later in release 17 will probably complement and finally, ultimately, take over this particular communication protocol. Yeah, that's basically the story in short. Have I clarified your question?
Okay.
So it's largely in use and working with absolutely no problem, and it is also an investment that will last because they have agreed that the later releases of the specification will keep supporting the communication service.
Excellent, thank you. I think that's all we've got time for in terms of questions now, but I'm sure if people want to visit the stand, if you could.
Yeah, that would be really appreciated. And you may download the comprehensive white paper, which also cover the Internet of Things in details across all the services from our website. So we have a here.